Fake HOA mocked my cane. Didn't know I lost my leg in combat. Part 1, The New Neighbor and the Fake Rules. My name is Elijah Brooks. I was a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army before I lost my leg outside Kandahar. These days I limp around with a steel cane and the occasional phantom pain. But none of that hurts nearly as much as the way people look at you when they think they know who you are. When they assume they already got you all figured out. I had just moved into Oak Haven Estates, a neat little community on the edge of town, full of trimmed lawns, pastel shutters, and people who pretended not to stare too hard at a man like me. I thought it'd be a quiet place to rebuild, maybe start fresh. It was quiet for about 3 days. On day 4, I met Karen. She introduced herself like a drill sergeant on a power trip, wearing a polo with a self-printed HOA compliance officer badge she must have ordered online. There was no real HOA here, just a few nosy folks trying to make one happen. "You're the one who moved into Lot 36, she asked, squinting like I was a blot on her perfect little map. "We weren't informed." "Didn't realize I needed clearance," I replied, giving her a polite smile. She glanced down at my cane. "Is that for show or—" I blinked. "It's because I left part of myself in Afghanistan." There was a beat where most decent people offer sympathy, or at least shift uncomfortably. But Karen, she just sniffed. "Well, let's hope it doesn't scratch the sidewalks," she said, and strutted off like she'd done me a favor. That should have been the end of it. I should have ignored her. But life has a way of testing your patience. And Karen, she was the final exam. The cane incident. A week later, I was planting flowers. Nothing fancy, just some chrysanthemums in a neat little bed by the porch. That's when I heard the voice again. "Oh my God," Karen said loud enough for the entire street to hear. "You're still using that hideous cane?" I stood up, brushed the dirt off my hands, and turned to face her. She was holding her phone like a weapon. "It's not a fashion accessory," I replied, keeping my tone even. "It helps me walk." "I mean, can't you get one of those discreet ones?" She went on, shaking her head. "It's just a bit aggressive. It makes people uncomfortable." I froze. Not because of what she said, but because of what I saw. Her phone screen was recording. "You're filming me?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. "For documentation," she said smugly. "This might be considered a violation under our community decorum policy. The cane, the flowers, your house is looking a bit unkempt." That word, unkempt. Like I was trash. Like I didn't belong here. I wanted to walk away. Lord knows I've walked away from worse. But something in me said no. Something that looked like my platoon leader back in Helmand. Something that looked like my mother, God rest her soul, who worked 2 jobs to get me into ROTC. Something that said, "Stand your ground." I stepped closer, just enough to make her flinch. "Let me tell you something, ma'am. That hideous cane helped me walk off a battlefield. I earned it. You don't have to like it, but you will respect it." And then I went back to my flowers. It went viral without me knowing. 2 days later, a neighbor named Alan, who worked in cybersecurity and always waved kindly when walking his dog, knocked on my door. "You okay, man?" he asked, holding up his phone. "This video, it's going around." I frowned. "What video?" He showed me. It was Karen's clip, but someone had added subtitles and reposted it on social media with the caption, "Fake HOA Karen mocks disabled veteran, says his cane is too aggressive." By evening, the video had hit 10,000 views. By morning, it passed 300,000. My inbox was flooded. Veterans, Gold Star families, strangers. "We see you. Thank you for your service. We're with you." The silence of Oak Haven was broken. And Karen? Oh, she was just getting started. The meeting that wasn't a meeting. A few days later, a folded flyer appeared in my mailbox. "Community Standards Enforcement Gathering, Lot 22, Thursday at 6 p.m. No signatures. No official HOA letterhead. Just Karen's handwriting on the back. "Please attend. Mandatory for recent arrivals." I showed up on time. Figured it'd be a dozen retirees sipping lemonade and talking about lawn heights. Nope. There were about 30 people there, and not one had invited me to sit down. Karen stood at the front like she was holding court, flanked by 2 others in matching polos with self-made compliance badges. She pointed at a clipboard. "We've received multiple concerns about your property, Elijah." "Really?" I asked. "From who?" She glanced at the crowd. From neighbors. Name one. Silence. So I pulled out my phone and started filming. What are you doing? She demanded. Documenting, I said, mimicking her tone from earlier. Might be considered a violation of my rights otherwise. There was a cough in the crowd, then a whisper, then someone laughed, and just like that, the tide began to turn. Public opinion is a powerful thing. The video from that night went even more viral than the first. News stations reached out. Military support groups reposted it. People across the country weighed in, with headlines like, "Veteran bullied by fake HOA, public rallies behind him, woman tries to enforce decorum, backfires spectacularly." Karen tried to issue a statement, something about misunderstandings and community cohesion, but it was too late. The world had seen who she really was, and now so had her neighbors. Even the mayor's office commented, saying, "No private citizen may impersonate an HOA without legal authority. We thank Mr. Brooks for his service." But I didn't want revenge, just respect. I didn't want to sue her. I didn't want to humiliate her. What I wanted was acknowledgement, not just for me, but for anyone who'd ever been talked down to, dismissed, or belittled by someone who thought they knew better. So when a local veterans nonprofit asked if I'd speak at their upcoming event, Reclaiming Dignity, I said yes. And I invited everyone from Oak Haven, even Karen, because change doesn't come from hate. It comes from truth. Tuyet voi minse viet par du sung jotva fanung dudoi von der Hausen erstu, tiep teocho kauchuyen, fake hoi, mocked my cane, didn't know I lost my leg in combat. Fan naisigum kachuto. Karen kutin trajua Elijah bankachio tromoy. Mod kuok joy jau kong hai kung tang vagay trankay dudoi. Kung chung tiep tuk fan no. Kach to shuk ku shin bin fa truyen thong bao kuok. Ile jakien kuang hung kung ba jau dao jong noi tam. Kung jong bat jau chia resusak. Karen van shui nhenrer selam. Makuntronen and gui him hon. Part 2, the backlash begins. Word count. Good 3,000, Mars of 15,000. When I agreed to speak at the Reclaiming Dignity event, I thought it'd be one of those quiet gatherings with folding chairs and a few veterans in dusty ball caps. I didn't expect a full auditorium. I didn't expect news cameras. I sure as hell didn't expect applause before I even spoke. But there they were, people of all ages, many of them strangers, standing and clapping as I walked on stage with my cane tapping softly against the wooden floor. I took a breath. I was taught to stand tall, even when standing hurts, I began. But sometimes the heaviest weight isn't on your shoulders. It's the look in someone's eyes when they decide you don't belong. My voice cracked on that last word. I told them what Karen said, about the cane, about the fake fines, about the decorum violations. I didn't mention her name, didn't need to. Everyone knew. The videos had done their job. When I finished, a woman in the third row stood up and shouted, "We love you, Sergeant Brooks." The room roared again. And for a moment, just a moment, I felt whole. Karen wasn't done. 2 days later, I found a bright orange flyer taped to my door. Community Emergency Resolution Meeting, mandatory location, Lot 18. Time 6 p.m. Subject Neighborhood Conduct and Code Enforcement. I stared at it, jaw clenched. Karen again. Lot 18 was Karen's house. It was bait, and I knew it. But I'd faced ambushes before. I wasn't about to run from a suburban ambush. I showed up 10 minutes early. She made me wait outside until everyone else had arrived. There were about 20 people in her backyard. Lawn chairs, a whiteboard, lemonade even. She stood at the center in a crisp white blouse and a smug smile, acting like the queen of order. "Elijah," she said, "thank you for coming. We hope this meeting helps restore balance to our peaceful community." I sat down, folding my arms. "Let's hear it." Karen began with a speech about standards, image, and unwanted attention. She claimed I had brought hostile scrutiny onto the neighborhood by misrepresenting her actions online. "I never mocked your injury," she insisted. "I simply asked about decorum and aesthetics. I raised my hand like I was back in school. And you filmed me without consent and told me my cane made people uncomfortable." Murmurs. Karen cut in. "And you escalated things by going viral. That's not neighborhood behavior." Someone in the crowd, Alan, I think, stood up. You started it, Karen. You brought your nonsense onto our lawns. You harassed a veteran. Karen's eyes flared. I was enforcing standards. This isn't about Mr. Brooks being a veteran. It's about conduct. That's when I lost it. Conduct, I said, rising slowly. Lady, I've spent years watching my friends bleed to protect your right to sit here and whine about someone's damn cane. I came home to rebuild my life. You came at me with a clipboard and a camera. Silence, then clapping. From Alan, from his wife, from two more neighbors. Karen's face hardened. She turned to the whiteboard and, with a marker, scribbled, Vote to issue community infraction, Lot 36. My house. The room gasped. She spun around. Majority vote decides. Who agrees that Mr. Brooks has disrupted harmony in Oak Haven? Not one hand rose. She looked around, frantic. Really? No one. Her own husband didn't raise his hand. I left without another word. The public turns the volume up. The next morning, someone uploaded video from that meeting. 2 angles, both crystal clear. Within hours, hashtags exploded. Jarnashur, stand with Elijah. Jarashan, fake HOA, Shas Kane of Honor. By the end of the day, my phone had over 700 messages. One was from a news anchor in Chicago. Another from a national veterans group. Another from a young woman in Boston who said, My brother walks with a cane too. Thank you for standing up. I felt seen, but I also felt hunted, because Karen had only just begun. Karen's counterattack. I came home a few days later to find a city zoning inspector on my porch. Sorry, sir, he said, holding up a clipboard. Got an anonymous complaint. Said you might be doing unpermitted construction on your porch rail. I stared at him. Seriously? He shrugged. It's probably nothing. I'll just take a few photos, file a report, and move on. The next week, a fire code officer. Then, a complaint to animal control because there might be aggressive barking from my backyard. I don't own a dog. Karen had declared war, but I didn't flinch. I kept planting flowers. I hosted a small veterans dinner. I let the world see what she couldn't. A turning point. The town hall meeting. A month later, the city announced a town hall discussion titled Abuse of HOA Authority and Civilian Harassment. I was invited to speak. The hall was packed. TV cameras lined the aisles. Karen sat in the back with a face like stone. I walked up, cane tapping, and looked at the crowd. My name is Elijah Brooks. I served 13 years in the United States Army. I lost a leg, but not my dignity. I moved here to heal, to belong. But instead, I was greeted by a fake HOA and a woman more interested in control than community. I turned slightly, meeting Karen's eyes. I don't want revenge. I don't want her ruined. I just want to live in peace. A pause. Then from the crowd, a voice. You've got that right, Sergeant. Thunderous applause, and Karen? She stood up, and she walked out. Karen's last stand, or so she thought. After the town hall, I thought maybe she'd take a breath. Maybe she'd finally look in the mirror and realize the storm she stirred had become a wildfire. But Karen didn't retreat. She recalibrated. A week later, a newsletter began circulating, hand-delivered to mailboxes in Oak Haven. No return address, no publisher. Just 3 bold words on the top. Protect our neighborhood. The rest? A 3-page rant under the name Concerned Citizens for Community Values, full of vague accusations, misquotes, and cherry-picked footage. According to the newsletter, I had threatened Karen in public. She cut out the parts where she was taunting me. I was using my status as a veteran to intimidate neighbors. My cane somehow had become a symbol of resistance. Yeah, she called my cane a symbol of resistance. Neighbors knocked on my door with copies, furious. She thinks we're that stupid, one older man huffed. I fought in Vietnam. She wants a fight. She's got one. Can we post a rebuttal? Alan asked. I smiled. No need. Because by that afternoon, the newsletter had been scanned, uploaded, and dragged across the internet like a piñata at a boxing gym. Enter the Veterans Alliance that night. I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Colonel Renee Martin, my old battalion commander. Elijah, she said, you've caused quite a stir. I laughed. Didn't mean to. That Karen woman just took on the wrong tribe, she said. and we're loud when we're angry. 2 days later, trucks rolled into Oak Haven from across the state, trucks bearing decals from the Veterans Alliance, the Wounded Warriors Network, and the Purple Heart Foundation. They weren't coming to fight, they were coming to build. A community barbecue was organized. Veterans set up tents in my yard. Local news showed up. Neighbors poured in with folding chairs, hugs, and tears. Someone handed me the mic. "I didn't ask for this," I said. "I didn't want war. I wanted a home. But sometimes even peace has to be defended." Karen's meltdown goes public. That weekend, a now infamous clip was recorded. Karen standing in the middle of the street in her fake HOA polo, screaming at two Army Rangers for parking too close to the curb. One of them calmly asked, "Ma'am, do you know who we are?" Her answer, "I don't care if you're the president." The camera caught everything. Her yelling, wagging fingers, accusing them of being fake vets looking for attention. Hooray! When she noticed she was being filmed, she reached out and slapped the phone out of the bystander's hand. That video hit 6 million views in 3 days. Comment sections turned brutal. People called for charges. Some sent gifts to my house. Others just sent letters that read, "Thank you for standing tall." But for me, it wasn't about the likes or the outrage. It was about one thing: dignity. The meeting that changed everything soon after, Oak Haven's City Council announced an emergency open forum on community harassment and impersonation of authority. It was obvious who it was about. Karen didn't show up, but her husband, Greg, did, and what he said shocked the entire town. "I want to apologize," Greg said, standing at the mic in front of 400 residents and 3 local reporters. "My wife has struggled for years with control. She never had power growing up. She's trying to matter in all the wrong ways, but she crossed a line, and I failed to stop her." The room was silent. "I'm filing for separation," he added. "This is not who I want to be associated with." And to Elijah, "Sir, I'm sorry. I admire your strength." I had no words, I just nodded. The fake HOA collapses within a week. The fake compliance club dissolved. Karen was served with a cease and desist from the city, citing impersonation of legal authority. Her house went up for sale. Rumor was she couldn't walk to her mailbox without someone filming her. A young family with a rescue dog moved into her house a month later. They brought me pie. The dog loved my cane. But the story wasn't over yet, because something deeper had changed, not just in Oak Haven, but in me. The offer I didn't expect. A few weeks later, I got a call from a man named Marcus DeLeon. He ran a national nonprofit focused on community healing through veteran leadership. He'd seen the clips. He'd watched the town hall. "You ever think of running for city council?" he asked. I laughed. "Me? I'm a porch guy." "No," he said. "You're the kind of guy who turns a porch into a rally point." And was something in me stirred, because maybe he was right. The exclusive interview that backfired. Just when life in Oak Haven started to settle again, gardens blooming, kids riding bikes, veterans walking proud, someone texted me a headline. "Local woman speaks out. I was bullied by a decorated veteran." WX7 News exclusive. I nearly dropped my coffee. I clicked the link. There she was, Karen, sitting stiffly in a powder blue blazer, eyes glassy with what I assume were fake tears, telling a young reporter how she had been targeted, harassed, and intimidated by me. She claimed the videos online were heavily edited and part of a smear campaign to ruin her life. She even had the nerve to say, "I didn't know he was injured. I just thought he had attitude." The camera zoomed in on her hands wringing a tissue. I never meant to hurt anyone. But now I can't go to the grocery store without being called a villain. I'm the real victim here. I stared at the screen, stunned. Was this a redemption tour? The nation responds, and not the way she hoped. Within hours, Karen's interview was trending nationwide, but it wasn't in the way she imagined. Veterans, military families, disability advocates, and influencers started stitching the video with receipts. The original HOA confrontation, the town hall, the BBQ with veterans, the slap caught on camera, and her quote about my cane being too aggressive. One TikTok creator, an Iraq vet in a wheelchair, posted a brutal 90-second video breakdown ending with, "Karen didn't get canceled. She got consequences. There's a difference. Thousands echoed the sentiment. The comment section was a battlefield. She's not sorry, she's embarrassed she got caught. She used a fake title to harass a man with a combat injury. Let that sink in. Imagine being this cruel, and then crying when the mirror shows your reflection. The letter that changed everything I thought about responding, writing a post, giving a counter interview. But then, 3 days later, I received a letter. It wasn't from Karen, it was from her daughter. Dear Mr. Brooks, my name is Emily. I'm 26 and I don't live in Oak Haven anymore. I saw your story. I saw everything. And I need to say something. I'm sorry. My mom wasn't always like this. She used to care, but somewhere along the way, she became obsessed with control and being right. I tried to talk to her. She wouldn't hear it. I'm ashamed of what she did to you, to others, and I'm grateful you stood up. Maybe it's what she needed, even if she can't see it yet. Thank you for your service and your patience. Sincerely, Emily Porter. That letter did more for my heart than 1,000 tweets. The Reckoning. 2 days later, I was invited back onto the same news channel where Karen gave her exclusive. But this time, I wasn't alone. With me were 3 other veterans who'd been similarly harassed by fake HOAs across the country. A Marine who was fined for painting his mailbox red, white, and blue. A Navy vet ticketed for flying the U.S. flag. A disabled Air Force sergeant accused of lowering property values because of his ramp. We sat side by side telling our stories, not to shame anyone, but to shine a light. I didn't ask to be in the spotlight, I told the anchor. But if we don't speak up, people like Karen keep thinking silence means permission. That segment went viral again, but this time it sparked change. The movement begins inspired by our stories. Several city councils across the state introduced bills targeting false representation of HOA authority and increasing penalties for harassment of disabled veterans. One city even passed a law nicknamed Elijah's Act, which forbade private citizens from issuing decorum warnings under the guise of non-existent HOA structures. It mandated that any complaints against disabled or veteran homeowners must be reviewed by a legal ombudsman before being acted upon. I wasn't looking for laws, but laws came because people were tired of silence and tired of fake power. Karen disappears from the public eye. In the weeks that followed, Karen's home interview was quietly pulled from the station's official page after public pressure. She resigned from every civic board she had joined. Her personal social media accounts were deleted. A for sale sign quietly returned to her lawn. Again, no one threw rocks, no one egged her car. That's not how we did things. But no one brought her casserole either. Even silence can be deafening when it's earned. Elijah's reflection. I never asked to become a symbol. I just wanted a porch to sit on, a garden to tend, a place to breathe again after the wars I'd survived, both foreign and personal. But maybe that's the lesson. When you stand tall, not with anger, but with quiet dignity, you remind others that silence isn't the only path, that scars don't make you weak, they make you real, and sometimes the cane they mock is the very thing that helps you carry others. The petition that shocked the neighborhood. It started quietly. Just a folded sheet slipped into mailboxes across Oak Haven. On top, bold red letters read, "Petition to file a civil harassment suit against Karen Porter." The lines below were simple. A description of the harassment. A note about impersonation of HOA authority. A link to Elijah Brooks' public documentation and city reports. A blank space for signatures. I didn't write it. I didn't even know about it. But by the end of the week, over 60 houses had signed. I found out when Alan and his wife knocked on my door, smiling with tired eyes. "We just got tired of watching you fight alone," he said. "It's not your battle anymore, man. It's ours too." Karen's final public confrontation. What no one expected was Karen's reaction. She marched into City Hall during open forum hours. She barged up to the podium, shoved aside the sign-in sheet, and turned to face the room, half full with reporters and angry neighbors. "This is a witch hunt," she shouted. "He's manipulating all of you. This is psychological warfare." The room went dead silent. She pointed directly at me, seated in the second row. "He has you fooled. The cane, the scars. He's playing on your guilt." Gasps rippled through the audience. A woman in the back stood up. "He fought for this country," Karen shrieked back. "That doesn't give him a free pass to defame me." A man in uniform, retired, silver-haired, spoke coldly. "Ma'am, the only person who defamed you was you." Karen broke down crying, muttering that her life was over, that she'd only tried to protect the community. The mayor rose from his seat. "This hearing is adjourned. Mrs. Porter, you are formally barred from submitting any further community directives under penalty of civil litigation. The city is reviewing possible fraud charges related to impersonating legal authority." The decision. The next morning, I sat in my living room, cane resting across my lap, staring at the envelope that had just been delivered. It was a formal notice from the Office of Veterans Legal Counsel. They offered full legal support to pursue a civil suit against Karen Porter for harassment, defamation, and impersonation with intent to damage. I could do it. I could take her to court. Let the law squeeze every last drop of karma from her fake authority. I could win damages, maybe even force a public apology. But I didn't open the envelope, not yet. Instead, I went out to the porch. The sun was just rising. The garden I'd planted had bloomed beyond expectation. A couple of tulips leaned toward the light like they were stretching. That's when I saw Emily, Karen's daughter, pull up in a modest blue car. She stepped out slowly, holding something in her hands. A photograph. It was Karen, much younger, holding baby Emily in one arm, planting flowers in the other. "She used to be kind," Emily said. "She used to cry when people were hurting. I don't know what happened." I took the photo gently. "People change. Do they come back?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "Only if they choose to." The porch conversation. That night, Karen came to my house. Not with a camera, not with a flyer, not with fake fines. Just alone. She looked older than she had weeks ago. The makeup was gone. So was the defiance. "I'm not here to fight," she said softly. "I don't know why I did what I did. I think maybe I hated how invisible I felt. And you walked in with strength and purpose and that made you angry," I finished for her. She nodded. "I don't forgive you," I said. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. I understand. But I believe in second chances, because this country gave me one." Tears welled in her eyes. "What do I do?" I pointed to the folded chair beside mine. "Start by listening." And she sat. For 2 hours she listened. To the war stories, the nightmares, the pain, the long road of healing. Not once did she interrupt. In the following week, Karen issued a formal, written public apology posted in the town bulletin. She withdrew from the neighborhood completely and joined a community reconciliation program run by veterans. Elijah, with support from the community, began drafting a community outreach program for education on disability awareness and veteran reintegration. The envelope from the legal office? Still unopened, because sometimes justice isn't punishment, sometimes it's growth. And in Oak Haven, something had grown, something strong, hard-earned, and beautiful. Part 3, Chapter 1, When the Nation Came Calling. It was supposed to be a regular Monday. I was standing in line at the grocery store, reading the back of a cereal box, when my phone buzzed with a notification that would change everything. CBS News, National Special, The Power of Silence, From Soldier to Suburban Symbol. I stared. I hadn't agreed to any new interviews, hadn't signed a single release. Curious, I clicked the link. There I was. Footage of me from the BBQ, the town hall, and even clips from my veteran outreach speech. The narration was calm, respectful, but what shocked me wasn't the content. It was the reach. National TV, during dinner hour. By the time I got home, my porch light flickered with camera flashes. 3 vans with satellite dishes lined the street. And just like that, I wasn't Elijah Brooks from Oak Haven. I was the man with the cane. Chapter 2, The Backlash of Fame. At first it was admiration. Letters flooded my mailbox. A 12-year-old in Nebraska sent me a drawing of a superhero with a cane. A retired general from Georgia asked if I'd speak at a leadership summit. Even the Pentagon civilian liaison emailed to thank me for representing quiet strength. But then came the other side. Commentators, YouTubers, bloggers who twisted the narrative, He weaponized victimhood. This is the woke military agenda in suburbia. Fake HOA Karen was right about standards. He just had better PR. It spread like wildfire. Suddenly, my silence looked strategic to some. Why hasn't he spoken out? One podcast asked. What's he hiding? The noise got louder and louder, until even I started questioning whether I should have ever answered that first knock on my door. Chapter 3, Karen Strikes Back. Then came the lawsuit, filed under a newly formed nonprofit called Citizens for Community Justice. The plaintiff? Karen Porter. The accusation? Defamation and psychological distress due to targeted viral harassment. Her legal team was funded by anonymous donors. News leaked that she had secured a PR advisor, 2 attorneys, and a speechwriter. She didn't just want compensation. She wanted a reversal, to rewrite the story, to paint herself not as a villain, but as a woman destroyed by a narrative she couldn't control. And for the first time in months, I felt fear. Chapter 4, The Spiral. The pressure came fast. My outreach program stalled, schools hesitant to associate with a controversial figure. A nonprofit rescinded its invitation for me to speak. Even the mayor's office asked me to temporarily refrain from further media involvement until legal matters are resolved. I wasn't angry. I was tired. I'd survived IED blasts. I'd watched brothers fall in desert heat. But this was different, because this battle had no front line, no flag, no enemy I could see. Just whispers and paperwork and doubt. Chapter 5, The Ghost of Guilt. One night I found myself sitting on my porch at 2 a.m., Kane beside me, staring at the horizon. The flowers I had planted had begun to wilt from the cold. The wind carried distant sirens. That's when Alan walked over, robe and slippers, holding 2 steaming mugs. Figured you might be out here, he said. I didn't speak. You thinking of settling? He asked softly. I nodded. Don't. I'm tired, Al. He looked out toward the road. You know what I remember? The first day you moved in. You walked slower than everyone, but you never once looked weak. That cane didn't just hold you up. It made us stand straighter. His voice broke. Don't let her take that from us. Chapter 6, The Letter. Elijah wrote, but never sent. The next morning, I opened my laptop, typed, to the public, I never asked to be your symbol. I never wanted to be your villain either. I am a man who planted flowers and was given fire. A man who lost a leg, but almost lost his peace. I do not hate Karen Porter, but I will not carry her shame. I didn't send it. I didn't post it. Instead, I hit print, folded it, and tucked it into the frame of the first photo I had taken after the war. The one where I'm standing, cane in hand, in front of a flag half my size. Because that letter wasn't for them. It was for me. Chapter 7, The Courtroom. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and cold air. I sat in the front row, dressed in a plain gray suit. My cane rested neatly along the side of the bench. Karen sat just 20 feet away, flanked by 2 attorneys and a media consultant who looked more like a talent agent. She didn't look at me once. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors, veterans, reporters, even strangers who'd followed the story online. The judge, a soft-spoken woman with sharp eyes, called for quiet. Case number 0432 VC. Porter versus Brooks, civil harassment and reputational damages. I exhaled slowly. Here we go. Chapter 8, The Karen Strategy. Her team came out swinging. They painted a picture of a vulnerable woman struggling under social persecution, a community organizer harassed into silence, a private citizen demonized for one misunderstood moment. They cherry-picked footage, quoting my words out of context. They even played a slowed-down version of me saying, "You don't have to like it, but you will respect it," as if it were a threat. Then Karen took the stand, crocodile tears. My whole life was torn apart, she sobbed. I lost my position, my reputation, my peace. He never once tried to calm the situation. He wanted me ruined. She clutched a tissue like it was a lifeline. The courtroom was still. Then my lawyer stood. Mrs. Porter, he said, Did you or did you not publicly accuse Mr. Brooks of lowering property value because of his cane? I, I don't recall using those exact words. He clicked a remote. The video played. Her voice rang through the speakers. Your cane is a little aggressive. It makes people uncomfortable. Gasps filled the room. Karen's eyes dropped. Chapter 9. My testimony. I took the stand with slow, steady steps. My lawyer asked me just one question. Why didn't you sue her first? I looked at the judge. At first, I said, because I thought it would just stop. That if I showed grace, she'd come around. That silence would de-escalate it. And when it didn't, I held the line. Because I've seen real hate. I've seen villages burn and people disappear. What she did, it was power lust, control, not evil, but it was wrong. I looked across the courtroom, not at Karen, at her daughter. She mocked my limp, my cane, my scars, and I still sat beside her on that porch. That wasn't weakness, that was strength. Chapter 10, Public Verdict, Private Pain. The case was adjourned. A verdict would come in a week. Outside, a sea of microphones waited. Sergeant Brooks, do you have any comment? I paused on the courthouse steps. Then I said, sometimes the loudest thing you can do is stand still. That quote ran on every outlet for days. But inside, I was unraveling. Sleep eluded me. My outreach programs were now labeled political. Even my quiet walks through the park earned stares, half in admiration, half in suspicion. I was no longer Elijah Brooks, the man. I was Elijah Brooks, the controversy, and I missed my quiet life more than I missed my right leg. Chapter 11. The Fire. The fire started in the early hours of a Tuesday. Someone had thrown a firecracker into my garden. It lit the mulch. The flames rose up the porch rail. The wood cracked like gunshots. I woke up to the sound of my neighbor Alan banging on my door. Elijah, wake up! Get out! I stumbled outside barefoot, heart racing. The fire department came fast. No one was hurt, but half the porch I rebuilt with my own hands, was gone, burned to ash. They found a crumpled flyer nearby. Take Back Oak Haven. Chapter 12. The Breaking Point. I sat in the blackened remains of the porch the next morning, staring at the scorched cane I used as a backup. Alan sat with me in silence. I turned to him. I think I'm done, Al. You're not. They want me gone. I'll give them what they want. He turned sharply. No, because the day you leave is the day they win. Not Karen, not her lawyers, the cowards in the shadows. I looked away. I'm tired of being a symbol. He leaned forward. Then stop being one, and just be Elijah, the man who doesn't bend. Chapter 13. One Last Letter. The day before the verdict, I found a handwritten letter on my doorstep. No return address. Dear Elijah, you don't know me, but my son served under you in Kandahar. His name was Marcus. You carried him out when the IED hit. You saved his life. He has 2 daughters now. One of them named her teddy bear after you. I just wanted to say thank you, not for the heroics, for holding the line. Again and again. Sincerely, Patricia Langford. I folded the letter and wept. Not because I was broken, but because I was whole. Chapter 14. The Verdict. The judge entered the courtroom just past 10 a.m. Karen sat beside her lawyer, lips tight, hair pinned, a glimmer of false confidence in her eyes. I could tell she expected at least a partial win, something to reclaim the narrative. Court is now in session. Final ruling in case 0432 VC. The room was dead quiet. After reviewing all evidence, testimonies, and public impact, this court finds in favor of Mr. Elijah Brooks. Gasps. Karen didn't blink. Furthermore, the court determines that Mrs. Karen Porter acted with malicious intent, misused perceived authority, and engaged in sustained harassment under the false pretense of community regulation. Damages to Mr. Brooks's character and peace were real, measurable, and prolonged. The judge continued. However, the court also recognizes Mr. Brooks' repeated efforts to resolve conflict through diplomacy, restraint, and compassion, which ultimately de-escalated what could have turned violent. I exhaled slowly. Finally, closure. Then, no further damages will be sought unless the plaintiff, Mr. Brooks, chooses to file civil compensation within 30 days. All eyes turned to me. Karen's lips quivered. She looked not defiant, but defeated. Chapter 15. The Crowd That Wasn't United. Outside the courthouse, the world waited. Half the crowd cheered. Some shouted, "Justice for Elijah!" Others murmured among themselves, "They went too hard on her. She's been punished enough." The story had begun to shift again, not from facts, but fatigue. People weren't sure what to do with me anymore. Was I a hero, a lightning rod, a symbol of resistance, or overreaction? That night, my mailbox overflowed. Some said, "Take her for everything she's got." Others wrote, "Be the bigger man. The world needs grace." My head spun. I'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. Chapter 16. Karen's Visit. 2 days later, I heard footsteps on my rebuilt porch. I opened the door slowly. Karen stood there. No camera, no blazer, no lawyers, just Karen. She looked small, shoulders down, eyes damp. "I came to ask," she said, voice trembling, "if you plan to sue." I said nothing. She took a breath. "I deserve it. I know I do. But I need to say something else first." She handed me a folded paper, then backed away. I opened it. It was a letter. "Mr. Brooks, I mocked your cane. I mocked your silence. I mocked your patience. But what I couldn't mock was your dignity. I tried to bury you in bureaucracy. You buried me in truth. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to remember the person I used to be and let me find her again." Going to Chapter 17, Elijah's Dilemma. I stood on my porch the rest of the night, the letter in hand. I reread it at least a dozen times. The legal team had already drawn up the paperwork. All I had to do was sign. One signature and I'd receive damages, enough to rebuild my porch, restart my programs, and remind the world that dignity can carry a legal price tag. But something inside me hesitated. I sat with Alan the next morning, letter still folded. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking," I said, "that maybe justice isn't about punishment." He sipped his coffee. "You forgave her once already." "Nah, Tanecham." "I didn't forgive her," I said. "I endured her." Alan smiled. "And what now?" "I think I want to show her something she never showed me." "Respect?" I shook my head. "Grace." Chapter 18. A Press Conference of One. Later that week, I called a press conference. Just one camera crew. Local news only. I wore a navy shirt, jeans, and the same cane I'd walked with since the beginning. When the mic was placed in front of me, I took a deep breath. I won the case. The judge ruled in my favor. I could sue for damages, take back every cent she tried to cost me. "But I won't," reporters murmured, "because I believe the power of change isn't in crushing people. It's in showing them what they refuse to see. I'm not a victim. I'm not a symbol. I'm just a man with a cane and a choice." I paused. "So here's my choice. I choose to let go. No lawsuit, no further action, just healing." The room went still, and then applause. Not thunderous, but respectful. The kind you give not to a warrior, but to a peacemaker. Chapter 19. A Community Transformed. In the weeks that followed, Karen left Oak Haven, moved in with her sister across town. She enrolled in a community mediation course through the Veterans Center. The city unveiled a new mural at Oak Haven Park, a figure with a cane standing tall beneath blooming sunflowers, titled "Still Standing." I restarted the outreach program with more volunteers than ever. And the porch, it was rebuilt by the same hands that had once doubted me. On Veterans Day, the mayor declared November 11th Community Integrity Day, in honor of veterans who served not just with weapons, but with wisdom. Chapter 20. The letter Elijah did send. 3 months later, I finally mailed a letter to Emily Porter, Karen's daughter. "Dear Emily, you asked me once if people can change. The answer is yes, but not because they're forced to, because they're shown another way. Your mother hurt me, But she also reminded me of something my commanding officer once said. The strongest thing a soldier can do is lay down his weapon first. I hope she finds her peace. I think I've finally found mine. With gratitude, Elijah chapter 21, Ripples of Grace. The story of the lawsuit dismissal spread fast, not just in our town, but across counties and states. Talk shows debated it. Veterans groups applauded it. Some legal analysts called it a missed opportunity for precedent. But the people who mattered, they saw it differently. In a town 3 hours north, a former Marine who'd been fighting his HOA over flag placement wrote me a letter. You reminded me that we don't always need to win the loudest way. Sometimes dignity is the loudest thing in the room. A middle school civics teacher in Arizona asked if she could share my decision with her students as an example of civic courage. And at the next town hall in Oak Haven, there was a new mood. Not bitter, not fake, but open. Chapter 22, Karen's Transformation. Karen didn't vanish. Instead, she did the unexpected. She started volunteering quietly at the Healing Grounds Project, a veteran-run community garden just outside city limits. No press, no speeches, just pruning hedges, pulling weeds, and washing pots. People didn't talk to her at first. Some ignored her. Others watched warily. But she showed up every weekend. She said little, did much. One day, an older vet dropped his spade and said, "If you're going to dig, dig straight." Karen chuckled. "I've been digging holes for years. Time to dig something worth planting." The other vet grunted, then handed her a fresh pair of gloves. Chapter 23, The Bench. A few months later, I was invited to a small ceremony. Nothing big, no press, just a few folding chairs under the old oak tree in the park. A new bench had been installed. Granite, smooth, with steel legs and a small inscription. For those who carry others when they can barely stand. In honor of Sergeant Elijah Brooks. I stood there a long time, reading it over and over. Alan clapped me on the shoulder. "She pushed you," he said, "and you didn't push back. You planted roots." I turned. "She wasn't the only one who changed." He smiled. "That's why we needed you." Chapter 24, A New Start. A few weeks later, I received an invitation to speak in D.C. at a conference titled Veterans and Civil Strength, Quiet Leadership in Loud Times. I hesitated. I wasn't a politician. I wasn't a movement, but I was a voice, and I finally felt ready to use it, not out of anger or even defense, but because I had something to offer. Chapter 25. The Porch Light. On my last night before the trip to D.C., I sat on the porch. The same porch they tried to burn, the same porch Karen once stood on, accusing me of being uncomfortable to look at. Torn. The cane rested beside me, still scratched, still strong. I watched as neighborhood kids rode past on bikes. One of them slowed and waved. "Hey, Mr. Brooks, my dad says you're like Captain America, but chill." I laughed. "Tell your dad I prefer quiet superpowers." The boy nodded. "Like forgiveness?" I smiled. "Exactly." Chapter 26, Full Circle. As I boarded the train to Washington, I carried just one bag. Inside was a folder filled with speech notes, the photo of me after Kandahar, and Karen's letter. Creased, worn, but not forgotten. Because redemption isn't just a moment. It's a choice. A series of choices, made again and again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And if someone like Karen could take the first step, maybe others would too. Part 4. Chapter 1. The Speech. The conference in D.C. was held in a large auditorium just blocks from the Capitol. Polished floors, navy carpets, and rows of seats filled with veterans, civic leaders, and nonprofit directors. I stood backstage, hands wrapped loosely around my cane, watching the previous speaker finish. When they called my name, the applause was steady, respectful. I walked to the podium, not to preach, not to scold, but to speak as I always had, plainly. My name is Elijah Brooks. I served as Staff Sergeant in the U.S. Army, and when I came home, I thought I'd finally found peace. In a quiet suburb with a porch and a garden. I looked at the crowd. But peace isn't found in silence. It's found in how we treat each other when there's tension, when there's difference, When someone looks unfamiliar or moves a little slower, I let the moment breathe. We don't need louder leaders. We need stronger listeners. People stood. Some wiped tears. One man in uniform saluted. Chapter 2. The Recognition. After the speech, a tall woman in a red blazer approached me. Mr. Brooks, my name is Deputy Undersecretary Collins. On behalf of the Department of Veterans Affairs, I want to thank you for your service and for what you did after. Your restraint spoke louder than most people shouting ever will. She handed me a small pin, shaped like a shield. It's not official, just symbolic, but it's been given to only 20 people. We call it the Second Service Award. I took it silently, emotions stirring. I had medals at home. None felt like this. Chapter 3. Karen's Full Circle. Weeks later, as spring returned to Oak Haven, I received a package. No name, no return address. Inside was a small wooden carving, handcrafted. It was a replica of a cane. Not mine exactly, but close. Etched into the side were the words, "Strength isn't about standing tall. It's about what you carry while standing still." There was also a note, "I've started over. I don't expect to be forgiven, but I hope to be remembered for more than what I did wrong. Thank you for showing me what I refused to see." KP, I placed the carving beside the flag on my mantle, not to glorify the pain, but to honor the lesson. Chapter 4. The Garden That Grew. Again that summer, Oak Haven bloomed like never before. We planted together. Veterans, teachers, kids, even folks who had once kept their curtains shut. The garden in my front yard was now a community project. We called it the Ground Forward. Each flower bed had a small tag with the name of someone who had made a quiet difference. Karen's name was among them. No one objected, because change had taken root, and we watered it with more than just soil. We watered it with accountability and with grace. Chapter 5. A Father's Day. Surprise. On Father's Day, I received a call from Marcus Langford, the soldier I'd once carried out of that IED blast. "I heard about everything, Sergeant," he said. "I never got the chance to say thank you. For my life." His voice cracked. "I have a little girl now. She wants to meet the man her teddy bear is named after." I laughed, holding back tears. "Tell her I'd be honored." That weekend they visited. She ran up to me, arms wide. "You're Elijah?" she asked, staring at the cane. "Yes, ma'am," I smiled. "The real one, not the teddy version." She hugged my leg tight and whispered, "You're my hero." Chapter 6. The Unexpected Offer. It came in a cream-colored envelope, addressed in gold script. From the Office of Civic Resilience and National Service inside was a formal invitation. I'd been nominated unanimously to serve as a regional advisor for a new federal initiative aimed at conflict de-escalation and reintegration of veterans into leadership roles. They wanted me to lead trainings, to speak, to travel, to be the example I had accidentally become. I sat with the letter for hours. It was an honor. It was everything I never sought, and yet I didn't know if I was ready to leave Oak Haven, my garden, my porch, my people, until I got a call. From Karen. Chapter 7. The Final Conversation. We met at the Healing Grounds garden on a cloudy afternoon. No cameras, no speeches. Just two people who had once been enemies, now sitting in dirt-smeared gloves under a fig tree. "I heard about DC," she said. "Congratulations." I nodded. "Thank you. Are you going to take it?" "I don't know yet." She looked down at the soil. "I wanted to say something. Not for me, but for you." I stayed quiet. Karen swallowed hard. "When I first saw you walk into this neighborhood, I saw everything I hated about myself. I saw stillness and strength, and I resented it." She paused. "I was wrong, and I want you to know. I've learned more from your silence than I ever learned from my shouting." I looked at her for a long time. "You didn't just hurt me," I said gently. "You taught me something too." Her eyes widened. "What's that?" "That sometimes even a scar has a purpose." We didn't hug, but we sat there, and that was enough. Chapter 8. The Day of Honor. On November 11th, Oak Haven held its first official Community Integrity Day. Not just for veterans, but for people who stood up, people who listened, people who changed. The town square was filled with folding chairs, sunflowers, local musicians, and booths for community projects. At the center stood a wooden platform. They asked me to speak, but this time I declined. Instead, I nominated someone else, Karen. She stepped onto the platform slowly, visibly shaking. The crowd was quiet. She took a breath and said, "You all know who I was, and you've seen what I did. I don't expect you to forget, but I hope you see who I'm trying to become. Because if Sergeant Brooks could give me a second chance, then maybe we all can give each other one." The crowd stood. No cheers, no chants, just stillness. And then applause. Not for perfection, but for courage. Chapter 9. The Final Choice. That night I walked to the old bench under the oak tree, the one with my name on it. The town had left a small envelope resting on the seat. Inside, a card signed by over 300 residents. "No matter where you go, this will always be your home." I looked out across the park. Kids laughing, dogs running, neighbors who once avoided each other now sharing cider. A town reborn. And I realized it was time. Chapter 10. The Departure. A week later, I packed a single suitcase. I left behind the medals but took the pin. I left the porch swing, but took a single sunflower. As the train pulled away from Oak Haven, I looked back at the skyline of a place I once feared wouldn't accept me. Now it carried me in every route, every bloom, every laugh that echoed on a street that once watched in silence. I was no longer the man with the cane. I was the man who walked forward, scarred, steady, whole. Therein, the end.